Who's going to hold you fast in the storms of life? Who's going to be your anchor and safe ark that will carry you to safety? Noah's diary. I went for a walk today. I have been so busy building the boat that I feel out of touch with the joy of taking a shaded walk. There is peace about being able to listen to the birds sing, having the feeling of grass beneath your feet, and watching the silkworm inch its way up to the trees, suspended in an air and an invisible lifeline. There is such beauty all around you when you stop, take a moment, and gaze around to notice. The storm is coming. The violence of humanity makes pleasant walks in the woods into fearful, joyless journeys of lost innocence. The parade has started as animals of all colors, shapes, and sizes passing by as if saying goodbye to their home, boarding the ark to journey to a new world. The ark is the remnant of all that was once good in this world. I know it is time to board the ark now that the animals have left. The supplies are loaded, the clouds are gathering in the sky. Will I ever see my home again? Will these feet ever step on dry ground again, having a peaceful walk? The door closes to this world. The tears of heaven start to fall to wash away the filth. Is there hope in the storm? The only life I see around me after a gray day of cleansing rain, after day, is surrounded and floating about something that I could never have imagined or dreamed of creating, the ark. The tears of heaven are mighty, flooding beyond the scope of the human perception. I have no choice but to cry out to the one who first told me to build the ark, and trust that he will keep me safe. And one day I will walk, if the tears of heaven will ever stop, upon dry, solid ground. This is my only hope as I float along, wondering if the storm will ever end. The biblical story of Noah is probably one of the most famous biblical stories known, isn't it? It's so epic that to many it reads like a fairy tale rather than a historical event. Many seeking to discredit the Bible as unreliable have questioned, of course, the story of Noah as kind of fantasy or myth. Yet many of the Bible's critics don't realize that a story of a flood that destroyed the earth isn't exclusive to the Bible. Before the words of Genesis actually were written down, ancient cultures of Sumerian, Babylonian, and other cultures in Mesopotamia had flood accounts passed on through their own history. These ancient cultures, of course, had different interpretations of the flood, especially concerning the nature of one God or many, than what was recorded in Genesis. A flood account, though, then, isn't exclusive to the Bible alone, but the interpretation and why it happened differed from culture to culture. Philosopher Blaise Pascal once remarked that humanity was the glory of creation and the garbage at the same time. Joni Mitchell, in her famous song, Big Yellow Taxi, comments on the struggle with human nature to destroy beauty. She sings, "They paved paradise, and what do? They put up a parking lot with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hot spot. Doesn't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got until it's gone? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. They took all the trees and put it in a tree museum, and they charged all the people $1.50 to see them. Doesn't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got until it's gone? They paved paradise and they put up a parking lot." Genesis paints this picture that life outside the sheltered garden became more like the wild, wild west, didn't it? Ruthless, violent, people taking the law into their own hands. You have the story of brother killing brother in Cain and Abel. And by the time we reach the story of Noah, the memory of God's paradise and garden and the goodness of God seem long forgotten. Chapter 6 says, "The Lord saw how great man's wickedness on the earth had become, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart were only evil all the time. And the Lord was what? He was grieved that he had made man on the earth, and his heart was filled with pain." Proverbs 19 says, "A person's own folly leads to their own ruin, yet their heart rages against the Lord." One commentator states that Genesis teaches that humankind cannot undermine the moral basis of society without endangering the very existence of its civilization. In fact, through its corruption, society sets in motion the process of an inevitable self-destruction. So God sees the path where creation is heading and intervenes, because the path he sees heading is self-destruction. Bruce Waltke knows that God will not endlessly and forever permit his life-giving spirit to enliven those who disorder the world. How long will God put up with the chaos? Verse 3 seems to state that God will give humanity 120 years to turn back to God. Now this might seem like God lacks the will to act, but I think the opposite is true. That God has long-suffering grace for humanity. Like a parent that holds out hope that a disobedient adult child will change for the better. So this is the impression of God in this passage. God is holding out hope in a very creative way by having someone build the largest object of faith or trust in God in the middle of one of the driest places on earth. Talk about being the talk of the area or the laughing stock of the region. The ark was so enormous, there was no hiding it from the town council or any of the neighbors. Years of labor and expense, think of the expense of all the lumber, were showing that Noah held nothing back. Noah, of course, couldn't accomplish what he did all on his own. He was inspired by someone with insight beyond any human imagination in Noah's day was capable of even considering undertaking. Even these men that have built these life-size ark, it's cost them millions of dollars in today's to do so. And people still think they're crazy. God inspired Noah, and Noah obeys when it comes to building the ark. God's heart in this whole story is to provide a remnant of people and animals through Noah that will once again seek to follow and obey God's design on how to live on the earth. Bruce Waltke states that Noah becomes a model for future believers, that when we turn to God, seeking a relationship and communion with God, deliverance from death is bound to follow. That's all God wants from us, is to turn to Him, seek His help. And that's what was not happening besides Noah. That's why Hebrews 11 speaks of Noah when it says, when he was warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear, built an ark to save his family. By his faith, his trust, he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness that comes by trust and faith. When we turn to God in faith, God will save us from our own self-destruction. The flood became judgment on humanity from turning away from God. But for Noah, it became a cleansing flood, washing away anything that would keep Noah from a right relationship with God. God waited patiently in the days of Noah, Peter says, while the ark was being built. In it, only a few people 8 in all, were saved through water. And this water symbolizes baptism that now saves you also. Not the removal of dirt from the body, but the pledge of a clear conscience from God. It saves you by the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who has gone into heaven and is at God's right hand with angels, authorities, and powers in submission to him, speaking on our behalf. After the waters had subsided and Noah once again exited the ark to inhabit that earth, to walk on dry land. I don't know about you, but if you've ever been on a boat all day or for a long time and you walk on dry ground, it sure feels good, doesn't it? It sure feels good. In fact, you feel a little woozy after being in the water for so long. What's Noah's first response? It was to worship. The proper response of realizing that everything we are and have in life is a gift of God's creative hand. It's to worship. Worship God in life. So what does God do in response to his worship? He sets a rainbow in the sky. Now the word in the text in the Hebrew reads bow, as in the battle weapon. Okay? In the ancient East, the bow was a symbol of hostility among the gods. God placing the bow, pointing away from the earth, becomes a very different symbol for humanity than what the ancient cultures believed. Klein remarks, the symbol of divine hostility has been transformed into a token of reconciliation between God and humanity. Another commentator comments on the meaning of the rainbow. Stretched between heaven and earth, it is a bond of peace that both in spanning the horizon, it points to the all-embracing universality of the divine mercy. The rainbow in the rest of the Bible becomes a symbol of God's glory and goodness. Ezekiel had a vision that changed his life. He says, I saw what appeared to be from his waist up this person that looked like a glowing metal, as if full of fire, and that from down he looked like fire, and bright, brilliant light surrounded him. Here's his impression. Like the appearance of a rainbow in the clouds on a rainy day, so was the radiance around him. That was the best words he could use to describe everything. He says, this was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. Do you have any personal rainbow encounters in your life? When Mary and I first started a date over 20 years ago this year, we saw a rainbow on a sunny, cloudless day. We viewed that as a sign that God was with us, and he was going to be with us, and that he was going to take care of us. I also remember being on a honeymoon in Alaska, and stretched across the horizon in the Alaskan wilderness plateau, you didn't see any buildings or anything, was this rainbow that reached and made the horizon just seem to go on forever and ever. Being able to see both ends at the same time. I started this message with Noah's diary. Isaiah 54, verses 7 through 10, is God speaking to his people, wanting them to reflect on the lessons of Noah. I've added the words, when you look at the rainbow, to the text. And I believe this would be God's diary of what happened. He says, when you look at the rainbow, for a brief moment I abandoned you, but with deep compassion I will bring you back. When you look at the rainbow, in a surge of anger I hid my face from you for a moment, but with everlasting kindness I will have compassion on you, says the Lord your Redeemer. To me, this is like the days of Noah, when I swore that the waters of Noah would never again cover the earth. When you look at the rainbow, so now I have sworn not to be angry with you, never to rebuke you again. When you look at the rainbow, though the mountains be shaken and the hills be removed, yet my unfailing love for you will not be shaken, nor my covenant peace be removed, says the Lord, who has compassion on you. So look at the rainbow. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, we want to look at the rainbow and remember your promise, how out of your mercy you provide a remnant, and that you promise to never destroy the earth again with the flood. Lord, we trust as we turn to you that the storms of life are too hard for us to make on our own. We need your help for the journey. We need your rainbow to guide us. We need your unfailing love, your compassion. Help us, Lord, in the times ahead to look to the rainbow. Amen.